Good afternoon. First of all, thank you very much for taking this time to be here and joining us today. I want to thank the press for doing so. I want to thank my Republican colleagues for joining me. I'm Representative Benninghoff. I am the policy chairman and also joined by our Speaker of the House, Mike Terzay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Very simply, we are here to discuss a piece of legislation that did pass through both chambers and is sitting on the governor's desk awaiting signature, and that is House Bill 59 to do with welfare reform and Medicaid waivers. We've got a couple individuals going to share some specific comments, but as you know, welfare is a large part of our budget. It's one of the fastest cost drivers in our state budget, and we believe these humane reforms are a way that we can make government work better. An ultimate goal, I believe, by both chambers and the governor's office is a government that works and works efficiently. It's got to start with less spending and wise and efficient spending. To us, this is a no-brainer. House Bill 59 is a good start there, and we're here to ask the governor, please sign this bill. As you know, policy committees conducted hearings across the Commonwealth in the last several months, both on strengthening Pennsylvania's workforce as well as welfare reform. A common theme that we hear at both is we don't have enough workers to fill many jobs that people want to provide. That's a good problem in one way, and that is there are opportunities. I've been lucky enough to be working since I was 11, and I still have the paycheck stub from my first check. And it reminds me that what we're trying to do here is restore the pride in earning a paycheck. Restore the pride of taking home money that you've earned to show your children that that's what America's all about. The land of opportunity to go out, go to work, and earn a paycheck. House Bill 59 is a good start, encourages a waiver in there. In addition, has the work requirements that was done years ago, and we would like to enforce here on Pennsylvania. I'm not going to say anything more because we have some other individuals that are going to speak, but I think today's a great opportunity. Again, I want to thank my Republican colleagues for being here. Thank all the colleagues that voted both in the House and the Senate to get this bill bipartisanly passed through into the governor's office. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Representative Dan Mao, who will then introduce Representative Tara Toohill. Representative Mao.
Thank you, Representative Benninghoff. To introduce House Bill 59 was my great pleasure because it was one of the things I felt that Pennsylvania needed to address for many, many years. I used to give speeches, and I still do from time to time, about people that work in this building, people I've worked with in other places around the state who had real disabilities. Here, I met a gentleman several years ago that was totally blind and would come here to work every day. And I could hear him coming up the hall before we had carpet in my building, and I could hear him tapping his way to work. And I got to thinking, there are so many able-bodied people who are not working, and here are these people who really have a right to say, I am truly disabled. Somebody should take care of me, and they refuse to. And I always thought, you know something? If these people can come to work every day and you're able-bodied, you should try to do your best to go to work every day. That's part of what this reform's all about. Taxpayers just can't keep up with escalating costs, and Pennsylvania cannot rely on the word of the federal government anymore to hold up its end of the bargain. No matter what is budgeted, as long as the current human services system remains unchanged, state spending will outpace its revenues. The General Assembly passed legislation to reasonably reform the system, and Governor Tom Wolf should just sign House Bill 59, the Human Services Code. Entitlement spending is one of the state's main cost drivers, and until we get those costs under control, we will continue to have billion-dollar deficits. These reforms simply help bring these programs under reasonable control. Medicaid expenses skyrocketed more than 35% over the past 10 years, while overall state spending increased 8%. Funding for the Department of Human Services equals 38% of the overall state budget, and the Medicaid component itself accounts for almost 21.5% of the state budget. To help contain these costs and bring about real cost savings, if enacted, the new Human Services Code could save taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the waivers requested and approved. Governor Wolf's administration would craft and submit the waivers. House Bill 59 extends provider submissions for child welfare placement costs. If vetoed, the Commonwealth would lose $30.8 million in federal Title IV maintenance funds. House Bill 59 provides a 3-year continuation of the process, which requires providers to submit documentation to the Department of Human Services of their costs of providing out-of-home placement services. DHS uses this documentation to support the claim for federal funding and for the state reimbursement for allowable direct and indirect costs for replacement services. House Bill 59 would also require the Department of Human Services to submit a waiver for Medicaid to pay for treatment after 15 days of inpatient, which is currently prohibited. That is directed at the opioid substance abuse treatment, one of the governor's keynote issues, as it is all of our keynote issue. It is something that we have come to realize in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that we absolutely must get a handle on, and this bill helps to address that. I can't imagine why our governor would make the statement that he's going to veto this bill if it lands on his desk. Why, Governor, would you not want people to go back to work if they are able-bodied and can work? The free ride should be over. If you are truly disabled and you can't work, I give you that pass. But if you can work, we need to encourage people to get out there and be a productive member of society. We have an opioid problem, a heroin problem that is killing our kids. This bill addresses a part of that problem. It allows for payment past 15 days, and anyone who's been around the issue of opioids and heroin, you know darn well that you cannot solve that problem. You cannot get over that addiction in 15 days. This bill allows for a lengthier stay. I'll just sum up by saying, please, Governor, sign the bill. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Tara Toohill at this time. Oh, we're going to introduce Representative Brian Cutler.
Thank you, Representative Mao. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I think this is very important. The request is very simple. We simply want the governor to sign the bill or allow it to become law. As we discuss the budget, one of the things that has been a consistent theme is the cost overruns in the human services area of the budget. The governor himself held a press conference last week to discuss about some of the executive action that he was taking or looking to undertake. And he highlighted one of the largest cost drivers, and that's the fact that the Medicaid expansion, due to federal reimbursement rates dropping, was increasing costs by $300 million. This is already nearly 40% of our budget. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of questions about what is in fact contained in the bill. We had a very robust debate on the House floor about this, but I think it's a good time to revisit many of these issues. In the bill, there's a limitation on Act 534 employees. This is actually an administration's ask. This was Governor Wolf's request that would save $4.908 million per year, just under $4 million in state funds and a little under $1 million in federal funds. There's been much discussion about the work requirements. Please hear me. The work requirements are reasonable. They mirror the work requirements that were put in place by the Clinton presidency way back in the 90s in the Welfare to Work program. It's for the non-elderly, non-disabled, and non-pregnant Medicaid-eligible adults. A lot of folks are asking why undertake this effort now. Quite simply, in March of 2017, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or the federal CMS, sent a letter to state governors indicating that it would begin to approve provisions related to training and employment and independence restrictions for Medicaid. Thus far, 6 states have submitted waivers. Reasonable work requirements are intended to encourage self-sufficiency and ultimately lead people from moving from and successfully transitioning from the welfare roles into good jobs. The waiver that Representative Mao referenced in terms of the 15-day requirement is essential. Now, admittedly, this will not have an immediate fiscal impact unless the federal government begins to enforce this exclusion. If that waiver is approved, the Commonwealth would continue to receive these funds, but it will take action on our part in order to do so. The efficiency evaluation that was added by the Senate is an important component. It requires DHS to issue for information in order to evaluate the efficiency of each program, and then identify and prevent fraud, waste, and abuse, which I think is a wonderful complement to the bill that was signed into law earlier this year regarding the independence of the Inspector General. It would look at the medical assistance, the SNAP, and the TANF programs. The participants will be selected to participate in the evaluation, and DHS does not need to execute an agreement if it appears there will be no cost savings for entering into it. But we are asking them to look, and I think that's important. And lastly, and probably most pressing, as Representative Mao pointed out, House Bill 59, as drafted and as requested to be signed, would extend provider submissions for child welfare placement costs. By vetoing this bill, the Commonwealth would be in position to lose $30.8 million in federal Title IV-E funding. This is important as we look at our financial situation going forward. There's been a lot of discussion about the cost of state government. The second part of that conversation needs to be, what are we doing to help bend those long-term cost curves as we go forward? Because if we do not make these changes now, we will continually be short on revenue, because those costs are growing at a far faster pace than revenues are growing, and those costs are escalating faster than our population or our tax base is growing, which causes these recurring problems year over year. Now, we will introduce Representative Tara Toohill to share her points.
Thank you, Representative Cutler. Mr. Speaker, our House Majority Leader, Dave Reed, all of our colleagues that have assembled here on the steps, and thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you to the media for your attention to this matter. These welfare reforms are changes that myself and other legislators have fought for over 7 years since I came into the House, and many of the members on these steps for over a decade or 2 decades. Governor Wolf, we're asking you to please do not veto this bill. Currently, in Pennsylvania, a single mother is afraid to work 20 hours a week because they could lose their benefits. Little does everyone know that there is a federal requirement existing that welfare recipients work. By following the work requirements, we can get family members freed from the cycle of poverty. These reforms will allow welfare recipients to enjoy the pride and dignity that comes from bringing home a paycheck, that pride and dignity that Representative Benninghoff was talking about, of being able to earn a wage, bring home a check. That's something that we have systematically taken away from people in Pennsylvania. The small requirement of 20 hours a week for able-bodied recipients will help fill the immense need for employees at food pantries, homeless shelters, nonprofits, and other volunteer-based organizations that currently cannot find employees. These reforms will have a big impact on moving our impoverished citizens into the workforce, putting moms and dads into positions where they can be productive members of society rather than folks who are literally trapped in a welfare system. In Pennsylvania today, there is no incentive to get off of welfare. We have unlimited lifetime welfare in Pennsylvania. We have the best welfare system out of many of the states, and it's a disincentive to work. House Bill 59 preserves the safety net for children, mothers, and fathers who are in real need, and ensures that our limited government dollars continue to be available for them. If we do not handle these funds carefully, then each year we will find ourselves with less money allocated to those people who truly need it. This bill has many positive changes to help our impoverished families, saving lost funds, providing drug treatment with a longer waiver, all good for families. Governor Wolf, we are asking you to please sign this reasonable legislation. Please help us change Pennsylvania from one of the greatest welfare states to a working state. Thanks.
Thank you again. I think members that spoke have made a great case. And I think it's one of the reasons we got the support we did get this legislation passed. To my colleagues, there's a message that you want to deliver.
Sign the bill!
At this moment, we'll take some questions. And again, thank you very much for being here today.